Have you ever walked into a room and felt a strange shift in the atmosphere? Nobody says anything directly. Nobody openly attacks you. Yet somehow the energy changes. A person who was warm suddenly becomes distant. Someone who used to support you becomes strangely critical. Others begin competing with you, even though you never entered a competition. And you sit there wondering, what exactly did I do? The strange thing is, sometimes the answer is nothing, because people are not always reacting to what you did. They are reacting to what your presence awakens inside them. Carl Jung believed that many of our strongest emotional reactions toward other people have very little to do with them and everything to do with ourselves. In other words, the qualities we admire, resent, fear, or envy in others often reveal hidden parts of our own psyche. This is where today's conversation begins, because someone who feels threatened by your presence rarely announces it. They don't walk up and say, "Your confidence makes me uncomfortable," or "Your growth reminds me that I'm standing still." Instead, the feeling comes out sideways. It disguises itself as criticism, as indifference, as subtle competition, as strange hostility that seems to appear out of nowhere. And the more unaware a person is of their own insecurities, the more likely they are to project them onto someone else. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever noticed someone treating you differently after you started improving your life? Maybe after losing weight, starting a business, getting closer to your goals, speaking with more confidence, or simply becoming happier? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see how many people have experienced this, because what we're about to discuss happens far more often than most people realize. And once you see these signs, you'll never look at certain behaviors the same way again. Sign number 1. They become uncomfortable when you remain authentic. What makes this sign so difficult to recognize is that nobody will tell you directly. Nobody says, "Your authenticity makes me uncomfortable." Instead, they react to it. They become strangely irritated, dismissive, critical, or distant. And at first glance, it doesn't make sense. Because authenticity isn't aggressive. Authenticity isn't demanding. Authenticity doesn't force itself onto others, yet it often creates powerful reactions. Why? Because authentic people unknowingly challenge one of the deepest fears many people carry, the fear that they have lost touch with who they really are. Think about how much of life is spent adapting. As children, we learn what receives approval, what receives praise, what earns acceptance. Gradually, we begin constructing a version of ourselves designed to survive socially. We learn which opinions are acceptable, which emotions should remain hidden, which dreams sound realistic, which parts of ourselves should stay locked away. Over time, many people become experts at playing a role: the successful employee, the agreeable friend, the responsible parent, the confident leader, the funny person, the strong one, the nice one, the helper, the caretaker, the achiever. The role becomes so familiar that they forget it is a role. Then one day they meet someone who seems free, not perfect, not superior, simply free. Someone who speaks honestly, someone who doesn't constantly seek approval, someone who isn't terrified of disagreement, someone who seems comfortable being disliked if it means remaining true to themselves. And suddenly, a strange discomfort appears. Because authenticity exposes something, it reveals how exhausting constant performance has become. Jung referred to the social mask as the persona. The persona is not inherently bad. We all need one. Society couldn't function without it. The problem begins when the persona becomes the entire identity. When a person no longer knows where the mask ends and the real self begins. This is where psychological tension develops. And this is why authentic individuals can become threatening. not because they are attacking anyone, but because they remind others of what has been abandoned. Their presence raises questions people have spent years avoiding. Questions such as, what do I actually want? What do I truly believe? Who am I beneath all these expectations? And those questions can be deeply unsettling. Have you ever noticed that some people seem comfortable around you until you stop pretending, until you start expressing your genuine thoughts, until you stop agreeing with everything, until you stop shrinking yourself? Suddenly the relationship changes, not because you became difficult, but because the relationship was built on a version of you that no longer exists. This is one of the hidden costs of personal growth. The more authentic you become, the more you disrupt relationships that were unconsciously dependent on your conformity. And many people interpret that disruption as a threat. A secure person sees authenticity and feels inspired. An insecure person sees authenticity and feels exposed. The behavior looks similar on the surface, but psychologically they are worlds apart. One sees possibility, the other sees judgment, and often that judgment isn't even coming from you. It's coming from their own conscience. That's what makes this sign so important, because if someone becomes uncomfortable simply because you are being yourself, the issue may have very little to do with you, and everything to do with what your presence reflects back to them. This brings us to the second sign, and this one is far more common than most people realize. Sign number 2, they constantly minimize your accomplishments. Imagine spending years working towards something. You finally achieve it. You share the news with someone, and within seconds they find a way to reduce it. It's not that hard. Lots of people do that. You got lucky. You were in the right place at the right time. Notice something. The goal is rarely discussion. The goal is reduction. The accomplishment must somehow become smaller, less meaningful, less impressive, less significant. Why? Because if your achievement remains valuable, it creates psychological pressure, and pressure demands a response. Someone secure can respond by feeling inspired. Someone threatened often responds by diminishing the achievement itself. Jung understood that the ego works very hard to protect its image. When another person's success challenges that image, the ego immediately searches for explanations that preserve emotional comfort, luck, timing, connections, circumstances, anything except the possibility that discipline, courage, sacrifice, or growth played a role. Because acknowledging your effort may require them to confront something uncomfortable. The possibility that they have been capable of more than they've allowed themselves to believe. This is where many people misunderstand envy. They imagine envy as wanting what someone else has, but envy often runs deeper. Sometimes envy is grief. Grief for unrealized potential, grief for opportunities ignored, grief for dreams abandoned. And when people refuse to face that grief, they often project it outward. That's why some of the strongest criticism comes from people who secretly wish they had done what you did. Not because they're evil, not because they're malicious, but because unresolved disappointment is looking for somewhere to go. The next time someone minimizes your accomplishment, pay attention. Ask yourself, are they evaluating what happened, or are they protecting something inside themselves? The answer may reveal far more than you expect. Sign number 3. They turn every interaction into a competition. One of the clearest signs that someone feels threatened by your presence is that they can no longer simply relate to you. Everything becomes a comparison. Everything becomes a measurement. Everything becomes a contest. What's fascinating is that you may not even realize a competition exists, because from your perspective, you're just living your life. You're sharing an experience, talking about a goal, discussing a challenge, celebrating a small victory. But somehow every conversation shifts. You mention a place you've visited. They immediately mention somewhere better. You share a personal achievement. They respond with a bigger one. You talk about a challenge you overcame. They quickly explain how theirs was harder. Nothing is allowed to stand on its own. Everything must be ranked. Everything must be evaluated. Everything must establish who is winning. And after a while, interacting with them becomes exhausting, because genuine connection disappears. Instead of listening, they're comparing. Instead of understanding, they're calculating. Instead of relating, they're competing. Now here's what makes this behavior particularly interesting. Most threatened people don't consciously decide to do this. In many cases, they're completely unaware of it. The comparison happens automatically, almost like a reflex. Why? Because comparison provides temporary emotional relief. For a brief moment, if they can place themselves above someone else, they feel secure. If they can prove they are more successful, more intelligent, more attractive, more experienced, or more accomplished, then the uncomfortable feeling inside them quiets down, at least temporarily. But there's a problem. The relief never lasts, because real confidence cannot be built through comparison. It can only be built through self-acceptance. This is why some people spend years chasing superiority and never feel secure. No matter how much they achieve, someone always exists who has more. Someone richer, someone smarter, someone more talented, someone more successful. The game never ends. Jung understood something profound about human development. He believed that maturity involves becoming who you are, not becoming better than everyone else. Think about that for a moment. Modern culture often teaches the opposite. Be better, be ahead, be number one, outperform, outwork, outshine. But Jung's perspective was different. The goal was not superiority. The goal was individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself. And once someone begins that journey, comparison loses much of its power, because they stop asking, "Am I better than them?" and begin asking, "Am I becoming who I am meant to be?" That's a completely different question, and it produces a completely different kind of peace. People who feel threatened by your presence often haven't made that shift yet. So when they encounter someone who appears comfortable in their own skin, they instinctively start comparing. Your confidence becomes a threat. Your progress becomes a challenge. Your success becomes a scoreboard, even though you never entered the game. Have you ever experienced this? Someone who seemed unable to let you have a moment? Someone who turned every conversation into an opportunity to prove themselves? If so, you're not alone. Many viewers have likely encountered people like this. And once you recognize the pattern, you stop taking it personally, because you realize something important. The competition was never really about you. It was always about the battle happening inside them. And that leads us to an even more uncomfortable sign, one that many people sense but rarely discuss openly. Sign 4. They secretly enjoy your setbacks. This is one of the hardest truths about human nature to accept, because most of us want to believe that the people around us genuinely want the best for us. And thankfully, many do. But not everyone. Sometimes a person's support only exists as long as you're struggling, as long as you're behind, as long as you're dependent, as long as you're not surpassing them. Everything feels comfortable. Everything feels safe. Then something changes. You begin growing, improving, evolving, and suddenly the dynamic shifts. The encouragement becomes weaker, the enthusiasm disappears, the energy changes. Yet something strange happens whenever you encounter difficulties, whenever you fail, whenever things go wrong, whenever you experience a setback. Their interest returns, their attention returns, their engagement returns. almost as if your struggle brings them relief. Now, before we judge too quickly, let's understand the psychology. Most people would never consciously admit this feeling. In fact, many are horrified by it. But the unconscious mind doesn't always behave according to our ideals. When someone feels inferior, your success creates emotional discomfort. It reminds them of what they lack. It highlights insecurities they would rather ignore. But when you stumble, the gap temporarily closes. The tension disappears. They feel safer, more equal, less exposed. And because the discomfort decreases, they experience relief. Not necessarily because they enjoy your suffering, but because your suffering eases their own. This is where Jung's concept of the shadow becomes incredibly important. The shadow contains the parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge. Jealousy, resentment, envy, bitterness, feelings that conflict with our preferred self-image. Most people want to see themselves as kind and supportive. So when darker emotions arise, they push them into the unconscious. The problem is that what remains unconscious still influences behavior, sometimes even more powerfully. This is why a person may sincerely believe they support you while simultaneously feeling relieved when things don't work out for you. The conscious mind says one thing, the unconscious mind says another, and the resulting behavior becomes confusing. You sense something is off, but you can't quite explain it. This is one reason emotionally intelligent people learn to observe reactions rather than words. Words are easy. Reactions are harder to fake. Pay attention to who celebrates your victories. Pay attention to who becomes distant during your success. Pay attention to who suddenly becomes energized by your difficulties. These moments reveal far more than most conversations ever will. The truth is, genuinely secure people don't need you to fail in order to feel valuable. Your success does not threaten their worth. Your growth does not diminish their identity. Your light does not reduce their own. But threatened people often experience life differently. To them, value feels limited, attention feels limited, success feels limited. If you rise, they feel as though they must be falling, and that belief creates all kinds of strange behavior, which brings us to another powerful sign, one that often appears disguised as honesty. Sign number 5, they criticize the very qualities they secretly lack. This sign is fascinating because it often sounds reasonable, at least at first. Someone criticizes confidence, they call it arrogance. Someone criticizes ambition, they call it obsession. Someone criticizes boundaries, they call them selfish. Someone criticizes independence, they call it coldness. Notice the pattern. The quality itself isn't the problem, the interpretation is. The same trait that one person admires, another person condemns. Why? Because people don't simply react to reality, they react to what reality means to them, and often what threatens them. Imagine someone who struggles to speak up for themselves. They avoid conflict, suppress opinions, constantly seek approval. Then they encounter someone who calmly sets boundaries, someone who says no without guilt, someone who protects their time, someone who respects themselves enough to disappoint others when necessary. That person may feel admiration, or they may feel threatened. If they feel threatened, the mind often searches for a justification. Instead of saying, "I wish I had that courage," it says, "That person is selfish." Do you see the difference? One response requires self-awareness. The other protects the ego. Jung believed that what irritates us most in others often contains valuable information about ourselves. Not always, but often. The qualities that trigger strong emotional reactions frequently point toward parts of ourselves that remain undeveloped, denied, or unconscious. This is why criticism sometimes reveals more about the critic than the target. When someone repeatedly attacks confidence, independence, ambition, authenticity, or self-respect, it is worth asking, what exactly are they reacting to? The trait itself, or the uncomfortable feelings the trait awakens within them? Because those are not the same thing. And understanding that distinction changes everything. Suddenly, you stop feeling the need to defend yourself against every criticism. You become curious instead. You begin asking deeper questions. Questions that reveal the hidden psychology beneath the surface. And as we'll see next, some people don't just criticize your growth. They actively try to pull you back into the version of yourself that made them feel comfortable. Sign number 6. They try to pull you back into an older version of yourself. This sign is often overlooked because it doesn't always look hostile. In fact, sometimes it looks like affection. Sometimes it looks like concern. Sometimes it even sounds like support. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. As human beings, we become familiar with people in specific roles. We develop expectations. We create mental images of who they are. The quiet one, the insecure one, the people pleaser, the dependable one, the funny one, the one who never says no, the one who always puts everyone else first. And over time, those roles become comfortable, predictable, safe. But then something changes. You change. You become more confident, more self-aware, more independent. You stop apologizing for things that don't require an apology. You stop explaining every decision. You stop abandoning your own needs to keep others happy. And suddenly certain people become uncomfortable, not because you've become worse, but because you've become different. The version of you they understood no longer exists. And for some people, that feels threatening. One of Jung's most powerful observations was that psychological growth often requires the death of an old identity, not a physical death, an inner one. The old self begins to fall away, the masks become too small, the old patterns no longer fit. The familiar roles start dissolving. And while this process can feel liberating for you, it can feel deeply unsettling for those who benefited from the old version. Think about the person who was accustomed to your constant availability. What happens when you start setting boundaries? Think about the person who enjoyed being the most confident person in the room. What happens when you begin finding your voice? Think about the person who always felt superior because you doubted yourself. What happens when you stop doubting yourself? The relationship changes, and not everyone welcomes that change. This is why growth often reveals relationships rather than destroys them. The growth itself isn't the problem. The problem is that growth exposes hidden expectations, expectations that were previously invisible. Suddenly, people begin saying things like, "You've changed." At first glance, that sounds like an observation, but often it's a complaint. And what's interesting is that they rarely mean you've become cruel, or dishonest, or selfish. More often they mean you've become harder to control, harder to predict, harder to influence. The version of you that always complied is disappearing, and they miss that version, not necessarily because they loved you more, but because they felt more comfortable around that version. This creates one of the most difficult moments in personal growth, because part of you wants to be understood, part of you wants to explain yourself, to convince people that you're still the same person. But growth doesn't require everyone's approval. Sometimes growth means accepting that not everyone will understand who you're becoming, and that's okay. The truth is, healthy relationships evolve alongside your growth. Threatened relationships resist it. Healthy relationships celebrate your development. Threatened relationships mourn the loss of your limitations. There's a profound difference between those two responses. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Sign number 7. Your mere presence changes their behavior. This final sign is perhaps the most difficult to explain, yet many people have experienced it. You enter a room, and something shifts. You can't prove it, you can't measure it, but you can feel it. The atmosphere changes. Someone becomes quieter, someone becomes defensive, someone becomes overly competitive, someone begins showing off, someone suddenly starts seeking attention. It's subtle, almost invisible, yet undeniably real. The reason this happens is because human beings are constantly communicating beneath the level of words, status, confidence, authenticity, self-worth. These things are often felt before they are consciously understood, and when someone feels threatened by your presence, their behavior changes automatically, not because they've carefully analyzed you, but because your presence activates something within them. This is where Jung's idea of projection becomes essential. Many people assume they're reacting to another person, but often they're reacting to what that person symbolizes. The successful person may symbolize unrealized ambition. The confident person may symbolize buried insecurity. The authentic person may symbolize a neglected self. The disciplined person may symbolize excuses they no longer wish to confront. The independent person may symbolize fears they've never overcome. In other words, your presence becomes a mirror. And not everyone enjoys what they see in mirrors. Some people appreciate the reflection, others avoid it, others attack it, others resent it. But all of these reactions reveal something. This is why truly powerful individuals often remain calm. They understand that not every reaction belongs to them. Not every criticism belongs to them. Not every judgment belongs to them. Not every projection belongs to them. They've learned to separate themselves from other people's unconscious struggles, and that is an incredibly rare skill, because most people spend years carrying emotional burdens that were never theirs to begin with, trying to fix perceptions, trying to win approval, trying to change minds, trying to prove themselves, trying to explain themselves. But eventually, a realization arrives. A realization that changes everything. You are not responsible for every emotion your presence awakens in others. You are not responsible for every insecurity your success exposes. You are not responsible for every shadow your authenticity illuminates. And once that realization sinks in, something remarkable happens. You become lighter, calmer, less reactive. You stop fighting battles that don't belong to you. You stop shrinking yourself to protect fragile egos. You stop apologizing for your growth. You stop explaining your worth. Instead, you focus on something far more important: your own development, your own self-awareness, your own relationship with the unconscious. Because here's the irony. The people who are most threatened by others are often the people who know themselves the least. And the people who know themselves deeply rarely feel threatened by anyone. Why? Because self-knowledge creates security. It creates stability. It creates inner ground that cannot easily be shaken. Jung spent much of his life exploring this truth. He understood that the greatest conflicts are often internal. The battles we fight with ourselves, the parts we deny, the fears we avoid, the shadows we refuse to confront. And until those conflicts are faced, they often appear in the form of other people. We see enemies where there are mirrors. We see threats where there are lessons. We see attacks where there are invitations to grow. That doesn't mean every criticism is projection, or every difficult person is secretly insecure. But it does mean that understanding psychology requires looking beneath appearances, because human behavior is rarely as simple as it seems. The person threatened by your presence may not even understand why. They may sincerely believe their reactions are justified. They may never become aware of what's happening beneath the surface. And that's okay. Their journey belongs to them. Yours belongs to you.